TikTok at Time to Rock, by popular demand. By popular demand, we have here with Simon and I, by popular demand.
Popular demand. The man, the legend.
Hey, Brian, good to hear from you. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys, too. I'm so thankful that you guys are, taking time to listen to my gobbledygook.
We should say good morning to Nelson Rodriguez and D-Tube, morning team. How we doing? Hope we're good. Yep. So, how's your week been, guys? Good?
Very good. Busy for me.
Excellent, yeah. Yeah, me too, yeah. The
Right.
life of the civil servant is
Right.
it's not a quiet one right now. But today's a big day for me. I get my second jab today.
Oh, really?
Get my second one, yeah. After this, I should be off to the local doctor's surgery.
Right. Oh, okay.
To be good. And then I'll feel even happier about it.
Oh, okay.
Morning, Robot Master Switch. Good morning. Yeah. So,
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Playing bass
Awesome.
and drinking Bloody Mary mixes with beer and or whiskey.
Oh, wow.
A quiet Friday night at Robot Master Switch's house.
How's the audio, guys? We just had a couple of issues before we went live, and I'm just mindful of the audio. We've got a bit of white noise in the background there. How's it coming through live on your guys' end, please? Just mindful of the audio. We've got
sorry.
a bit of
I think there is a bit there, yeah.
How's it coming through live on?
Don't know.
Hey, Mark.
Morning, Mark. How you doing? Yeah, we've got a bit of hiss. It's the Hawaiian hiss.
Right. And there's no snakes here, so
Well, no,
I don't know how that would have happened.
I kind of feel like that the airwaves have to get across the sea to you somehow,
Right? Yeah.
And so then that's fraught.
Maybe-
But
Maybe it's an effect of the jet stream.
Oh, it sounds pretty good. It's coming through pretty good. Miles is saying it's okay, and Mark is saying it's okay.
Yeah.
So, fantastic.
a little hiss.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, little hiss never hurt anybody.
yeah, you got it.
Tape. We're analog. This is tape.
Oh, right. I love tape.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, well, that's I should. I got some 8-track tapes upstairs.
And I'm lucky I've got a machine that can actually play my cassettes. So.
Oh, wow.
So behind this is my stereo, including a cassette machine.
Oh, okay.
And why wouldn't you have a cassette machine?
Right.
I must say, I can't remember the last time I played a cassette on it, but I have got some cassettes in the cupboard with my records.
Texas.
Oh, I've got
Morning,
a lot.
Texas.
I've got a lot that I need to do surgery on them. You know where there's a little copper piece that keeps the felt pushed up against the heads, so that glue can come off, and then you got nothing there, so you have to improvise and get something jammed up in there. Maybe a little piece of paper or something.
I remember that. Yes, only just fixing them and all of that. Yeah. I'm like, when they broke, you'd be like, oh, I have to go. And I'm like, my father was a composer, Brian, and he had a studio, and so I could go to a studio and fix my cassette tapes with his tape splicing kit.
Right.
So you put the kit in the thing, and just put a bit of tape over it.
Right. I had one of those actually.
Yeah, tape splicing. The lost art of tape splicing, as we have now.
Right. In fact, I remember one of my first recordings that I ever did. Um, this guy that was, and he would record all of the people that were into rock music. His name was Pierre Grill, and he was a master at singing. So sometimes we would be in the studio having some problems, and then he would say, "Well, there's no problem. I could just splice it." And so he'd get the reel and dial it, and then get it to the right spot, take it off, put it on the splicer, put it back in, and it'd be seamless. It's a lost art, I think.
Yeah, well, those days, and dropping people in so that you could fix a mistake and stuff like that, and
right.
Play on,
Right,
done, and all of that. Yeah, God. And now it's all on a screen, Brian. Now it's all on a screen.
Oh yeah. Everything you do it with a little mouse.
Yeah,
click of the mouse.
I mean, it's one of the things we talk about on here quite a lot. Is that thing about you in the old days you recorded and you produced with your ears because you only had tape, something to look at. Whereas now you look at it on a screen,
right,
and you say, there's a bit of a gap there, or something, So you're producing and recording with your eyes, as well as your ears, which is the extra sense is not necessarily a good one to have mixed in.
And I was terrible at going to the studio recording. I learned a bunch of lessons the first time I went in. Meant that you really needed to be prepared so that you didn't waste a lot of time retaking and whatnot. So
yeah.
Back in the old days, our band would really, for anything, whether it was a gig, a large gig, or anything like that, we would rehearse our asses off until we got everything perfect. And we'd even employ something we called the Filogram. So we take a sheet of paper, and then we talk about how we wanted the set to travel throughout the full hour or whatever, 45 minutes, and the songs that we selected. So, like I would say, okay, so I want the set to start off a little mellow and then start to rise up, and then dip down a little bit and then rise up again to a peak. And it was always like a gradual valley and mountain at the very end, being the type of music that we played. So then we would take all our material and then bullet point spots on the line, which one fit this particular mood, which one fit this particular mood, and also we thought about what keys are we playing in? Do we have two songs that are A that are butted up against each other with some similar amount of feel and expression, or are they two different things? Try to keep all our songs different so that when you're in the audience, you're not hearing like similarities between songs. And, I would lose my interest if I heard something like that. So,
good morning, Johnny Bean.
Yeah, so we definitely took steps to plan the set list so that it
really
had a certain feel, and it mellowed out in the center, and then really started to rise up with energy and then peak. Probably with 2 encores held for the very end. And over time, it took me time to learn to be a show person too. My own personality is super quiet, and I'm very reserved.
Brian? So
when you get on stage, you gotta act the part. So
so did you do the same thing for when you record? Do you
plot
out the same thing?
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of raiding going on. Everyone's just called Brad Cook raid and Johnny Bean raid.
So
with an album, you did the same thing. Take the songs and then
So not long ago, I was tasked by the band, or the band is Storm was my most recent band that I was in, and they wanted to do a female version of the Jekyll and Hyde story. And so the first thing that they mentioned to me was that we wanted to have continuity with all of the music. because we're doing this kind of like on a theatrical level. And they had done projects like that before in the past, and that's the same style that they wanted to have for this, possibly to act out the part on stage because they had done it before. But they wanted me to write all the music. And at first I wasn't up to it, but then I realized that everyone in the band had different writing styles. And on the album that came before that, trying to mash all our styles together was a bit of a task. There were certain they wrote in a certain way where I didn't really care for it because it kind of sat on the straight and narrow and didn't really have the Filogram style that I was looking for. I wanted to have a lot of key changes and things like that to make the music interesting. It wasn't like that. So I did a lot of surgery to that album. But on the album that I actually wrote all the music, the first thing I needed to know was like get together with the singer, and we all know the Jekyll and Hyde story, but then how are we going to take this story and divide it up into parts so that you would have the moment of the doctors realizing that there's a problem that needs to be fixed and going to come up with a potion to try and fix it, and that goes awry, and then things go south, and then there's a moment of like the characters confused and maybe suffering in mental turmoil. So you have to imagine musically what that would be like, and then the triumphant ending. You have to kind of imagine all that. So, all the years when I was younger, I had always been interested in movie scores and things like that, but I borrowed a lot from movies to write the particular album. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing for me, is to know what the story's all about, and then dissect the innards of that particular story, and then tell each one of the parts and make sure they blend together. But then, like how I mentioned before, the Filogram style, making sure that it kept the interest. Riff-wise, the keys that we're playing in, the patterns that we use, the effects of the songs, and if we wanted to have a sorrowful type of vibe to it, and make sure that the feeling of that showed in the music. And
morning, Derek.
I'm someone that, I write in the visual style, so everything for me is visual. If it's guitar solos, it's visual. If it's writing songs, it's all visual. So.
Strikes me, Brian, that it's. And I've noticed this about that kind of modern metal genre, is it's very technical. Yeah, you talk about key changes, and it's very kind of it's almost kind of mathematically worked out, not mathematically, but the key changes and the very intricate way that I know. I have a guy. I go on these guitar breaks holidays, these guitar playing holidays, which are kind of blues based. But one of the guys on that is a guy called Pat de Jong. He's a Belgian guy, and he plays in one of the bands he plays in is a sort of death metal band. Mm-hmm. And he said that it is the most complicated thing that he ever does as in a band. He said they have to, if they're doing a gig, they have to rehearse for 2 months beforehand. Because it's so intricate and so tight and so kind of mathematically organized, and also quite fast, that when they all play certain things, that they've got to really get into the groove of being together. They have to practice what they play a lot together to get it so that it's just right.
And that's what it's actually like for flamenco. Not so much for Storm. Storm for me is a little easier, but the flamenco metal music is really, you have to rehearse it a lot, and you have to have the dancers there to participate.
So that you get the feel of it. So not Storm so much.
No, with Storm. For me, it's fairly easy.
So how did it go?
Maybe it's because I've done a lot with metal, so it's not as complicated.
After that, it's always a step back from that kind of.
Right.
Yeah. So go on. So where did you start, Brian, with Storm and doing the Jekyll and Hyde thing?
Okay, so really, actually started in my truck. Actually, so when I worked, I'm retired now, early retirement. But when I worked, I had a 2.5 hour commute, and a lot of the melodies and everything, all of the ideas came while I was driving in traffic. For me, that was the place for me to write, and so I'd have a dictation recorder with me in the car.
I was going to ask how you memorized them. So you had a recorder. What singing? Would you sing the melodies?
So Sandy and I, the singer Sandy and I, would get together, talk about the story of a particular song, and she described it to me what the character was going through, and I would visualize that in my mind. I would visualize it like it was a movie, and then I would just write melodies to it, or bass lines, or rhythms. And most of the ideas came while I was driving. So I would drive. My day started like at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to hit the freeway. Actually, it was 4:30. But anyway, and in that early morning hour, there was a lot of production going on in my mind while I drove. So that's what I did. I sang to the recorder. And when I got home, I had all the ideas, and I'd figure out which ones I liked the best, and then I would write to that. And also writing for me is nothing like using mathematical theory or anything like that. I'm not that kind of a person, because I'm basically self-taught and ear-trained, and so we're not going to be getting into like highly technical chords and whatnot. That's not how I roll. But I enjoy writing the songs, because when I was younger, I did a lot of drawing and I did a lot of painting. So that the physical aspect about actually painting, I use that same way of thinking in the music itself.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I have this habit of every song I have has like about 3 or 4 or 5 key changes in it. And that's only because I like my music to be like you're walking into a house, right? So you walk into the house and you get into the area where you take off your shoes. That's one part of the song. And then you go and walk into the kitchen, and that's another part of the song. So for me, that goes into a different key and a different feel.
Right.
And then you walk into the living room, and that's a different part of the song. So that's a different key and a different feel there. And yet, everything, and by using various trial and error types of interval checking, I would call it, I would find my way technically to resolve back to the tonic where everything started.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Brian, I mentioned this that trip, that commute that you did every day.
Right.
Did you get into the mindset of I'm going to write on this commute? That's what I'm going to, or did you just let it happen?
No, it just comes naturally.
Right. Yeah.
The seed that would start it would be the conversation with our vocalist.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
But you're in the truck.
Right, I'm in the truck.
Or whatever, driving.
I'm thinking about the music.
Yeah. So in a sense, you've got that mental space of being in the truck where there's nobody else talking to you or anything like that, in which then your creative thing is free to do its thing.
That's right, and that's the thing about that. That's also was great about driving is that.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to the road, but my mind is like going off.
Yeah.
And I'm in a creative space during that.
Yeah. I mean, I just wondered if that there was a conscious thing about, good, I'm going to drive for 2 hours, whatever it is, this is going to give me time to kind of,
No, very unconscious.
Very unconscious.
Like I'm like that all the time.
Yeah. So what's it? Keith Richards said he was like an aerial, in the atmosphere, waiting for the songs to come down and go through.
In. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd say that's the same thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's because clearly, I think there are two kind of schools of thoughts of this, aren't there? There's there, which is the, sort of the aerial in the sky and waiting for the thing to come, and then there's what I might call this. I don't know if this won't mean anything to you, but there's an English writer called P.G. Wodehouse, and he was asked if he had any what his advice would be to young writers. And his advice was, apply seat of trousers to surface of chair. You won't write anything unless you sit down at a table and start writing.
Right.
Do something, which I think is, clearly, I don't know whether he did, he wrote novels and sort of comic novels and things. So
awesome. There's a few people in the chat, Brian, saying g'day to you. We've got Deja Voodoo saying hi, and I don't know if you can see the chat, but there's a few guys making a connection between your process of songwriting and taking off your shoes as you progress through the house. That's very much an island style thing, and that's something that we do here obviously in New Zealand too, because of the Maori population. When you go to someone's house, you take your shoes off, and interesting how you make that observation, because I was just reading a couple of days ago in reference to New Zealand musicians, where one of the key things that they like to talk about, or they like to do, is the songwriting process or the performance process is identified, has a name, it's identified. It's not just called the gig or the show. Everything has a process. Everything is identified and recognized. Which I think is an interesting thing, and to hear you talk about that with your songwriting process is pretty cool. You sent me a whole lot of photos for us to show. Do you want us to flick through those? Is that okay? Is this a good time to and then we can ask questions about the photos? Is that something you want to do?
Let me just tie up something really quick, because you brought up a good point.
Cool.
So during the writing process, I'm always geared for playing live. That's the main purpose. I mean, I play guitar because I want to transmute the notes and the feeling I have into the audience, right? So I'm writing songs because I want to perform these live. And so my intent is to make the songs exciting and to make the guitar playing exciting. If I'm soloing, I'm going to make the solos exciting. So I always have this in mind too. This is part of the writing process, is that live performance is also my intention. I'm not just writing songs, not only to tell the story. I mean, that's a large part of it, right? That's like 75% of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 25% is definitely geared for live performance. And so even with this album, I purposely left out other guitars where I could have layered a lot more, but I didn't, because I knew that it's not going to pan over live. And so I want to keep it true to the live performance.
That's interesting. You always had your eye on how you were going to perform it live, and not just yeah. Because a lot of bands don't do that, do they? A lot of bands will have, do as intricate parts as you like, and then then they work out later how to play them live, kind of thing.
Right.
Like which bits of that am I going to play live? So maybe they don't play all the bits. Just pick out the salient bits from the thing.
Yep, and I already had that thought in mind already. That was already part of the process.
Yeah, Brian, just go back to your driving thing, where you as I said, my dad was a composer, and he used to he would be on his way to a session in a taxi, right? And he would be writing out the parts in the back of the taxi for the session. It's like,
Awesome.
Edward, what are you doing? It's like, it's all in here. It's all in here. I just got to write it down. It's just the mechanics of writing it down. I've got it all scored in my head.
Right.
Just to frighten people no end. He's copyist, I think, is the thing. Edward, what are you doing? It's all in here. Don't panic. You know?
Talking about writing music, I used to be able to read it a long time ago. During my college years, I did have a stage band class. And we used to play some Korean music and some standards and things like that. And eventually, over time, I had forgotten all that. And I should have kept up. In fact, when I was in Los Angeles, one of the things I should have done was I should have joined the Musicians Institute and really dug into the more of the guitar playing theory and everything. But during the time that we were just there for one purpose, and it was there to try to make ourselves something. And 5-6 years of that didn't turn into that result. And that's why I'd always kept my day job.
Yeah, of course.
Good words from your parents, right?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to get to. You know, we can go to the photos and then get to guitar playing too. If you want to do that.
I'm just while you're thinking that, I just want to pick up on Texas Jackdaw says, in my recordings for film and TV, he abandoned the live band concept and said, I mixed the whole song, even if it was just me. I mean, Texas Jackdaw, my dad had a studio, did exactly that. He would record live instruments. You know, he'd go and do a recording session with a I don't know, a violin and a flute and a whatever. And then he would take it back to his studio, and he would then process that through tape loops and synthesizers and putting it through all sorts of things to kind of to treat the sound. And that was a completely different part of the creative process. So that, you know, what the original thing was not what you heard on the program by a distance, as he messed about with it a lot.
Awesome. There's a question here for you, Brian. Do you have certain guitars that you that when you play them, they make you play a certain style, or do you mainly just think about it in the car and then any guitar you grab, you play in the same way? It's a good question.
Right. So for me, I'm always tied to my Les Paul. So that's the only guitar that I ever play.
Wow.
I try to adjust the tone so that when I'm recording, you know, I'm getting closer to, or I try my best to get closer to something that's similar to a Strat sound, but of course I'm not going to get there with a Les Paul. And then because that's when I do like a lot of double tracking. So I'll double track myself playing the same pieces, but with different tones.
Different guitars?
A lot of but on the same guitar.
But different.
All I have is a Les Paul. What I'll do is I'll play less dirty on one and more dirty on the other.
And then pan them, yes?
Usually, yeah. And some of the post-production work, I leave that up to the person that's producing it. And that's another person in Arizona, a friend of ours. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, so you concentrate on the recording and the creative process and putting it down, and then let him get on with what he does.
Right. So even when recording, I record dry.
Yeah.
I don't have any delays or any.
That's an interesting thing, isn't it? You record dry, no effects, no nothing, and then that all gets put on post-recording.
Right. Except for the gain. The gain's coming from the amp. But that's it.
Yeah. Yes, clearly, and there's that complete change, isn't there, between the old days when it was all what the sound you recorded was the sound you put together out of your amp, guitar, and whatever else you had, pedals, and that's the sound you recorded. Whereas now, you, as you say, record it as dry as possible, and then you add everything on later, reamping and pedal. Yes, all that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. isn't it? I mean, it goes back to the kind of the 50s. I remember a story with when Roy Orbison was doing Pretty Woman, you know, and that Pretty Woman starts down, 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 down.
Right.
Well, that's a mistake. That's a mistake because he forgot the riff.
Oh, okay.
in the the red light. He's got red light fever. The red light goes on, and he forgets the riff. So he plays half of it, and then he plays half of it again, and then he goes, I know what it is. And clearly, they just left it. But
awesome.
The story is, he's in the studio. He's got this band and everything. They're all set up, and basically, they, it's all they're in relation to the microphone that's going to record them. Because we haven't got 18 tracks and kind of everyone, and basically the guy, let's go and you play. They press the button. What is played is on the tape, and that's what you hear.
Right.
There's no production. There's no post recording worked on it at all.
Right.
By the time it's gone to the tape, that's what you're getting.
Yeah, the good old days.
Yeah, it's just different. It's live and it's different.
Yeah.
I think they have a vibe. Those records. I think they have an
You
energy.
get that magic.
You get that magic. That, which I think is interesting. I mean, I talk a lot here about the magic of having people play in the same room.
Right.
As opposed to, and all the, I'm sure you've done this, yeah. You see old shots of, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, they were in the, it's all set up, you have the drums, bass, guitar, and they're laying down all the basic tracks, as a band. They might go into some overdub guitars and bits, but, I think that gives those records a real vibe and a real energy.
You're there together and you're vibing off of each other and eating each other.
Yeah. Whereas I think that it then got into a much more technical phase. And I think now, and I was talking to a friend of mine at work whose son is in a band, and they've just done some recording, and they've completely built it up individually from scratch. Do the drums, then they do the bass, then they do the guitar. Absolutely, and there's none of this playing in a room together. It is built up layers in a very kind of technically organized way. I could never be, but so I think that's really interesting. So I guess, Brian, that's what you do. You basically you're laying down the tracks, and it's quite technical. Yeah,
this album was done that way. And I wish it didn't have to be, but that's the way the chips fell.
Yeah.
So let's hit the photos.
Do you feel like it makes a difference? Am I talking? What I'm asking you is, am I talking rubbish?
No. You're definitely hitting a chord there. So I believe in that too, because the group is the magic when they're together. So.
Yeah. But what I'm interested in is, how do you get a different kind of magic by doing it all separately and building it up in layers, stuff like that? How do you retain? I'm interested in how do you retain the magic?
No, I do. It comes down to attitude. Like I mentioned before,
on the individual track.
My attitude towards the track, my attitude towards the guitar, and because I know it's meant for live performance, I want to put as much feel into the music as possible. So that's the best way I can do it in the way that we're doing it.
Yeah, but you see my point about it is it's more difficult to do that if you're on your own.
Right.
And I don't know.
Right.
Let's pretend. What you're concentrating on is getting the perfect performance.
Right.
Where it's all played right and it's all more than you are the vibe with the drummer or whatever.
Right. No, but I've spent a lot of years in bands where we would practice because we were going to play live, and I would rehearse on my own like I was going to play live.
Yeah.
And like I would be in the studio by myself with my Marshall cranked up to almost 10, and I would be practicing on my own. I would stand outside of the door of the studio with the cord going up underneath it, and listening to the warehouse that we recorded at, that we played at in Oakland. In fact, you get the really natural reverb in there. So I would be playing there for like 4 hours until Death Angel came to rehearse next door, and then I'd have to stop because I'd be interrupting their rehearsal.
To go back in the studio, not stand outside. Yes.
Right.
I think just Derek makes a really good point about Def Leppard actually recording individual strings.
Right.
I remember that. Yeah, actually just recording an individual string on a different track to make up a chord.
That's some work there.
Well, that's a lot of work, isn't it? That's well, I think I suppose the theory is that you play each string, and each string then will, you can make it ring and make it sonically perfect in terms of, so when you put it all together, it has a kind of perfect sonic ring to it, I guess.
Did I mention to you that a previous band before Full Metal came about was in a band called Churchfield, and we opened up for Def Leppard at the Concord Pavilion in California, Northern California. And so I remember that day so well because none of us actually got to go and hang out with the band. And I was talking with the management and wanting to get back there. In fact, I gave them my name because years and years ago, I had hung out with Vivian Campbell. I don't know if I told you guys this story.
No, go on.
When Dio would come to Hawaii back in the 80s, the person that ran the store that I worked at, Howard, would have us go over to the hotel and pick up Vivian Campbell to bring him to the store to do meet and greets with the customers. Mm-hmm. And so 2 different years, Dio came and we hung out with Vivian for hours. So I got to know the guy, and fast forward into the 2000s when we had the chance to open up for Def Leppard, and of course Vivian's in the band. I tried my hardest to get to go back there and see the guy so I could say hi and reminisce about the old days. But they never gave us a chance. The management there was really tough.
Yeah, I think you find that a lot, don't you? That management protects the bands in a way that the bands don't necessarily want to be protected like that. But protecting their investment.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's a bit sad, really, isn't it? If you can't get backstage to, mix as musicians and stuff. And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Right.
It's absolutely what it's about.
So anyway, let's see. We got the Fillmore information here from the gig with Robin Trower.
Fantastic! Look at that.
My wife found that in some of our photos, so she sent that over.
Let me just can you go back, Andrew? Sorry, I've got to point out one thing about it. At the bottom it says pocket cameras okay, no audio or video, no glass, Apple's okay.
Right.
It's wonderful. It's like, so obviously Robin wasn't expecting somebody to throw an apple at him.
Right.
It wouldn't hurt too much. That's it. So it's all the details, and that's what it's about. It's about the details of it, isn't it?
I guess you'd have to be careful because in the area where the guest bands were getting ready, it was an upstairs area that you could see the stage from. So, chucking some food might happen. I don't know.
Food fight.
Right.
From the band, yes. Never mind the audience, from the band, yes. But I love the idea. Apples are all right.
So this is Marty Friedman. I'm sure everybody knows who that is. But this is back in 1981 or 82, it could be. And this background over there, that's my high school. And so back in those days when I first met Marty, we mutually had a love for Uli John Roth, and so the first time I got together with him was because I heard that he was teaching and that he was into Uli, and so I went over to his place and we hung out and we played around with Uli music, and I think after 45 minutes of noodling around on guitar and trading licks, he decided to just forget about the teaching part. and we just jammed, and that's basically how I got together with him.
Right.
So, after he moved from the extended house on his parents' property, he moved to an apartment in Waikiki, and which was conveniently above a 7-Eleven. He liked the food there, and the big gulps. So anyway, so I would go to his apartment, and we'd go over there and we'd hang out and jam and play Japanese music. A lot of times we would listen to some Japanese albums and steal licks off the records. And he would show me some of his riffs, and he would show me some of his songs. He would ask if I could play some of his rhythms, and then I would do it for him, and then he could noodle on top of it. And a lot of those riffs, I sort of remember them. They're kind of vague to me, but I remember telling a story where when we would get together and jam, and he would show me some parts of songs that he was working on. That to me was just like, okay, I'll jam with you, and you play on top of your music. That sounds good. And then years later, when the first Cacophony album came out, or the cassette tape that a friend let me borrow, I listened to that, and then the first time I heard one of the songs, I hear some of the riffs, and they sound super familiar to me. And that's because he showed it to me years and years ago, and he had already had that in his mind and worked that into the Cacophony music, which he did with Jason Becker.
Yeah.
Jason Becker, our buddy. I'm always trying to promote him because Jason always needs support. But
Indeed,
good times, hanging out with Marty and jamming with the guy. I learned a lot from him. And this was at Jason Becker's show. In fact, when Marty first got in and he showed me the guitar, and I tried it out and played it a little bit.
What make of guitar is that, Brian? What make is it?
Oh, you know what? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what the brand is. Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, I can't see the headstock, so it's interesting that and I've talked about this on here a bit before, but the kind of people like Marty Friedman and a lot of the American 80s metal bands really didn't make any kind of splash over here at all in the UK. We wandered off on a different musical path, which meant that so I'm not familiar with Marty Friedman at all, really. I know his name, I know he's in Megadeth, but it kind of, that's a headline not worth really printing. So I don't, and people like George Lynch and John, and these people don't mean anything much in the UK. They don't have anything like. I mean, even I would say even Van Halen, beyond Jump, most people not familiar. That familiar. I mean, they'll be fans, of course, but Van Halen only toured here once. They toured here. I think they supported Black Sabbath here in about '79, and then they would come and play the festivals. So you come to Reading Festival, and they headline a day at Reading Festival. But yeah, they didn't kind of come over here and do a theatre, stadium, or anything else tour on their own kind of thing at all. It's just interesting, yeah. That and clearly it's a lot. The Americans on here, like Johnny and stuff. They talk about guitarists. I don't. You think to yourself, well, they were minority interests in the UK by then. Not the mainstream. Clearly, much more the mainstream in the US.
Right. Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, and I guess if you're there in Europe, you really have to dig into the underground scene in order to find out about it.
I think maybe more so in Germany. Certainly, has always had a big, heavy metal scene and really been into it. But yeah, I mean, certainly, UK in the 80s had gone off on a, late 70s and early 80s, and I think it's interesting, that in '77 we had punk, you know.
Right.
We had that kind of all that new wave stuff, and and then it went into that electronica thing. Sorry, in the early 80s, and so we were off on a slightly different tangent to the rest of the world.
And maybe that's a good thing.
Well, indeed. I mean, so in the early 80s, you had what we used to call Nawabum, which was the new wave of British heavy metal.
Right.
Of which Def Leppard are one, Saxon, all those guys. But they were in. They had to go to America to make it big. Really, that's where the rock scene was in much more focus than it was here.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
That's me, my wife, and Marty, and this is this is a rare pick, I think. I don't think anybody can find this pick. I think Fruitcake Tony.
Fruitcake Tony, yes.
Would like it.
Absolutely.
But Andrew, you had a picture of the thumbnail of a picture of me when I was in another band called Chaos. Where did you find that photo?
Oh, I've got my contacts, Brian.
Okay.
Is that Chaos with a K, Brian? Or
yes, Chaos with a K. So
good man.
So let me say that I later learned through the Metal Underground folks that particular show that I played at, which was at this place called the Coconut Grove, was one of the early shows that Marty's band Hawaii actually performed on a larger scale, right? And so, I found out that particular gig in itself is supposed to be like a turning point for metal at some point. I didn't know that, but I was told that later by some other enthusiasts.
Didn't spot it at the time, yes.
Right. I mean, okay. It didn't really mean anything to me. We were just doing gigs. But I guess for the heavy metal crowd, especially considering Marty and who he became, it seemed to be some kind of turning point. And
Look at all that
this is the band. So this is the band Aaron's Rod. Up on my right is Neil Delaforce, Gerard Gonzalez, who's the drummer in Storm. Edward Dysars at my bottom right, left, I guess you would say, and then on my right hand side is Angela Jensen, the singer. And so I joined this band after it already started, and that band was called Aaron's Rod at the time. And we're still sort of together, we're still friends, so maybe there'll be another album coming out from that project. And if you flip to the next picture, you'll see the back of the album. And so the front cover of the album was a disgrace because the person that did the production on the album chose the artwork for the front of the cover, but I wanted to have a good picture of what we looked like there. And so back in the days in Hawaii when we used to do a lot of gigs, we used to do a lot of post-concert parties at a place called The Junction. And so if you go to the next photo, you'll see George Lynch just playing my guitar. So at that time, Dio and Dawkins were in town, and Dawkins, that band showed up at the gig, and Dio's band showed up at the gig. Dio was in a green room that he had set up there, and I remember sitting in that green room with him for a couple of hours, and he would just talk about his life and his stories being on the road, and about being who he was. And he had a professor-like style of talking to us, so it felt like I was talking to some old college professor. But he was really nice, and he was really like an encouraging kind of person, So the way he talked to us was like, do what you can now to improve yourself and be a good musician, be a good person, and put your all into it. You never know where you're going to go. So,
no.
Yeah, he had some really good advice. And George here, he approached me.
Was that guy George Lynch? That
was George Lynch.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
This is George Lynch. This is George Lynch like 20 years later in Sacramento. But when we saw him this evening, actually we saw him several times before that, so we sort of got to know him on and off. But that particular evening, I actually made a print of that picture that you saw earlier, and gave it to him this night right there in that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Framed photo, and he went and signed it, but I just handed it over to him. He took it, and he said he was going to put it up in his studio or someplace. But George is a great guy. In fact, at the gig, he approached me. He was like, "Hey man, we're gonna get up on stage, but I want to play a guitar that's got like the best action. Who's got the guitar with the best action?" And I said, "My Les Paul does." He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna play your guitar, and we'll just let Vivian have the crappy guitar." Which, the guitar with the crappy action. That's what he meant. And that was my friend Neil. He had a gold Stratocaster. It was a vintage guitar too. It wasn't crappy at all, but it did have higher action. And he was a big Billy Gibbons fan too.
Who isn't? Who isn't?
Yeah, right. And so this is a band. Now this is a different version of the band. When we moved to Los Angeles and tried to make a go of things, a couple of the band members left. Some of it for family reasons, others because they thought, maybe things aren't right here. Let's go back home and start all over. In my mind, we were already in Los Angeles, and I'm not going to go backwards. That's not how I operate. So I thought, well, you guys can go, and we're going to stay here. So the singer and myself, we stayed, and we did all kinds of gigs there in Los Angeles. It was a good time, and we wrote songs there and did recordings there. Some of them were, from what I found out, seemed to be the popular studios at the time. There was a place in Van Nuys, and I forgot the name of the studio. But there were all kinds of rock stars on the walls, so I assume that those people recorded there as well.
Wow.
And the guy that's on my left, he's actually from Hawaii too. He actually moved up after we had moved. And then there's the bass player who's next to him. That's Patrick Guyton. And he's actually a flourishing artist as far as painting wise. He does these really large paintings, and people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for his work.
Wow.
Really gorgeous paintings. I actually wanted to have a guitar body painted by him, because he would use different media in his paintings. He would actually use gold leaf and things like that. So he does beautiful work. And then the next guy over is the tallest guy in that band is John Kunkel. And he was an infamous person there in Los Angeles. He had a place called the Kunkel House on Victory Boulevard. And there was all kinds of debauchery that went on at that house. My being a family type person, I never took part in any of the debauchery. So I was more geared to the simple things, hanging out with my wife and stuff. And so I never got into the, go to LA, figure, oh, you're going to be in a band, and you're going to get with the women and all that kind of stuff. I was never part of that. That wasn't my mindset. The mindset was music and, maintaining my relationship with my wife, soon to be. So, that's where my head was at.
Keeping you out of trouble.
Right. And besides, I never got into drugs, and a lot of the reasons was because I had some physical stuff on the problems I had that wouldn't allow any drug intake, put it that way. So I wasn't able to do any coke because I had really bad sinus problems back then. So you're never going to see me putting a straw to my nose and hitting the line. And
Protection.
I never got into smoking pot because I was kind of sort of asthmatic, and pot really didn't do anything for me. So I didn't want to be. I wasn't the kind of person that liked being out of my mind. So I always kept 2 feet on the ground. And then and the final person on the far end is Angelo. He's actually the origin of the group, Aaron Andrade. He was the lead. And so that band was great. We did so many gigs in Los Angeles, had a good time. And this was the result of that poster, actually, the Gazari.
Oh, there we are. Look.
And
guitars.
And there I'm playing the pink Les Paul that I showed you guys the last time.
Yeah.
With Steve Luca there. And I still have that Marshall head right there. It's 1976 Marshall Mark II 100 watt. And my pedal board there, I have the only pedal that I have there for effects would be a wah pedal, and there's a box next to it. It's the Boss Overdrive 1. I had that set at about 9 or 10 o'clock, but most of it's the drive from the amp. And nothing else, just a power source.
So I guess a lot less drive than you think, Brian. Yes, if you're just using the amp.
Right.
Yeah.
And that amp was so good. It got me the tone that I was looking for. I bought it actually off of a guy in the Van Nuys area of Los Angeles. Because when I got up there, I didn't actually have any gear. I was going to be renting gear at the time, I guess, or borrowing it. But I bought that amp, that half stack, for like $500 for the head and the cabinet. And when I tested it at this guy's house, it was just, it had incredible tone. He had a full stack, but I didn't have a way to bring the slant top with me. So I could only fit the bottom and the head. Otherwise, I would have taken the whole thing. But for $500, I got the half stack, and that rig stayed with me all the way into the early 2000s.
And you were able to play it at proper volume with that, Brian. You were playing, it clearly looks like it. You were playing venues where you could crank it up and get the sound out of it. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm always playing at level 7 and above.
I've told this story. I had a high watt 100 watt with a 412 cam.
Oh wow!
But we're playing in bars.
Right.
It was the most beautiful sound, but it was unplayable in a bar.
It's difficult to tame the beast.
You'd be like, what 0 and 1? There'd be like, micro adjustments.
Right.
Because if you put it on 5, you in a pub, you just have the back walls of the bar out.
Turn the volume knob up a millimeter.
Yeah, that's right. It was literally like that, and it just became, it's like, this is mad. Sadly, it had to go, not because I didn't love it, but because it just, in practicality terms, it just, you couldn't, to be going 0 and 1, kind of, doing that kind of hilarious kind of tweaking so before it cut in and started deafening people.
Right.
And sadly, it had to go. And in favour of a 30 watt amp. I've got a 30 watt PV Delta Blues, which is great, but then I can play with it on 4.
Right.
So I'm impressed by anyone that has a 100 watt and a 412 cam who can actually play it on 7 or 8 at a gig. That's playing proper places.
There's another version of the band here. certain members left and other members came in. And in fact, the person in the direct center, his name's Adam Curry. If you go to the Candlebox website, you'll see he's the bass player for Candlebox today. He's been in the band for many, many years.
The Dog Pal wants to know, Brian, what year are these flyers from?
Oh, okay, yeah. So between 1987 and 1995, somewhere in between that. Yeah.
Don't call those numbers on them, by the way.
And, there's a couple of, I don't know if James Stewart is on, but I think James Stewart and the Dog Pal were gigging around those years.
I don't know who's James Stewart. I don't know who that is. But,
it's another person that I ran into in the chat.
Oh, right.
And
does he have an alias?
Maybe that's his alias. Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart. Yeah. Well, you do kind of wonder, don't you? The one thing we could say about it might not be his real name. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Aaron's Rod phase kind of fizzled out at one point during the 1993, somewhere around then. And then I was left. Actually ended the band at that point because the singer had left, and so trying to find vocalists is really tough. It's hard to find a singer that would fit the stuff that we were doing. So eventually the group broke up, and I fooled around with trying out for other different bands. One of them was Lightstein, and that one almost kind of made it, but it didn't. There was
Ramstein, yeah.
There's some differences there. Eventually, I got together with this Russian fellow who was in a band. I forget what the name of the group is. They were very popular in Russia, and he had a group called Cutthroat Lane. And in the house that he lived was with his girlfriend. And his girlfriend, her father was the person who produced the early Clint Eastwood. He wrote and created the music for the Clint Eastwood movies. Outlaw Josie Wales was one of his pieces, and so we would rehearse in his studio in Hollywood. And it was in that studio where I made a demo tape for. Now you're on the Vicious Rumors photo here. So during the time where I was searching for a band, I got a call from the rhythm guitarist and leader of the group Vicious Rumors from the Bay Area. And he wanted to know if I wanted to try out for their band because one thing was their singer, who was an incredible singer, his name was Carl Albert. He had passed away recently from a car accident. And the band was in flux. And back at that time, their lead guitar player, Mark McGee, who was a really good friend of mine and is also a magnificent guitar player. He has a band called Love Planet. But anyway, Vicious Rumors, the guitar player wanted me to try out, and there was several different tryout sessions. They were held in the Bay Area. And so right about the time when the LA riots had happened, the neighborhoods there were going south and things weren't so good. Yeah. So when this tryout session for Vicious Rumors happened, and we got to see where they lived in the Bay Area, it was like a breath of fresh air. So eventually we moved there instead and got out of Los Angeles. During the tryouts, a lot of different people showed up to try out for that gig. It wound down to just myself and Steve Smythe. Steve Smythe got the gig, and I was happy for him. Hanging out with the band, I discovered that my personality, it wasn't that much of a good mix with the particular band. So it wasn't like I was very disappointed not getting the gig. But Steve Smythe, he was super accomplished. And here he is. We're playing at the infamous Baked Potato in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so when I lived in LA, while everybody, let's say my friends, while they were going to Guns N' Roses gigs and things like that, my wife and I were going to all the jazz fusion gigs that I could get my hands on. So I remember before I mentioned that I went and saw Steve Lukather's band 30 times, maybe I would say. I kind of exaggerated there, so I thought I did. And then my wife pulled up a ticket book that we had with all the tickets of the shows that we'd been in, and there was up to 30 tickets. Look at this show. So anyway, there's a little story there too. When I met Steve Lukather back in the 80s, that was from just going to his gigs and hanging out in the Big Potato. Eventually he would come and sit with whoever and just chat. And so one evening, a buddy of mine and I went to one of his gigs, went to Steve Lukather's show. We were assigned a table right in front of Steve, which was great. We sat there for a little while, and then we got booted off of that. Now the lights had already gone down in the place. The floor manager booted us out of the seat because there was a higher guest that Steve wanted to have sit in that spot instead. And I was a little bit upset about it, but the guy was like, "You got to get out of the seat because Steve wants his seat." So I was like, "Okay, we go." So the guy moved us to this booth. And so we sat on the side of this corner booth, and it was a little dark. And then the show started up, and then the great Steve Lukather came out, and the gig happened, and it was great music as usual, since that was probably like my 5th time going to see Steve. And so when the lights come on, Steve comes over to the table, and I look over to my left at the guy sitting in the table, and he's with his girlfriend. And who's sitting next to me all night during the show, which I didn't notice because it was dark? It was Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck and his lady friend are sitting next to me. I didn't even know that's who that was.
Wow.
So that's Steve incredible. Came over, when the lights came on, Steve came over and sat in the booth next to Jeff. And so there was Steve, Jeff, the girlfriend, myself, and my buddy and my wife.
That's cool as you like that, is Jeff Beck.
Right.
How was
my
he?
mouth dropped. I was
How
like,
was
wow, amazing. Very soft-spoken, and they joked around a lot. We were quickly whisked away from the floor managers. I didn't really get to talk to Jeff Beck.
Yeah, the hoi polloi, not allowed to hang out with the stars.
Right, but it was nice. It was nice to enjoy a show with the guy. I guess I could say.
Yeah. Fantastic. I like the fact you're hiked away swiftly, Brian.
Yeah. So
it's
fast forward into these days when after getting into the flamenco band, because of our musicality, we would run into other musicians in the Bay Area, and of course one of them was Jason Becker, my buddy. You guys know him, Dave Lopez, friends with Jason.
Yeah, I know.
Dave Lopez
has been on Johnny's channel.
Right, he would end up at the rehearsal studio place all the time, and he would say, "Oh man, you got to meet my buddy Jason." And then I'd tell Dave, I'm like, "Yeah, I met Jason like 20 years ago or something like that. Maybe not that far away, but at least 12 years or 10 years before at one of Marty's Cacophony gigs. Marty had introduced us to him back then.
Brian, I have a quick question for you. I'm a Richie Kotzen nut. I think he's outstanding. He's just done a recent album with Adrian Smith, one of the guitarists from Iron Maiden. Can you just tell us a little bit about Richie Kotzen? And have you got a story to tell us about Richie Kotzen?
Richie would show up at Jason's house when his birthday parties would happen. So Richie's a really nice guy. He's a little quirky, which I like. Super talented. Sometimes at Jason's house, when everybody's sitting around waiting for the birthday cake to show up, we're just sitting around hanging out, and people are driving guitars and noodling around on guitars, and you could trade off with the guy if you wanted to. He's playing down a 1-4-5 blues riff, and either he or there's another photo you're gonna see Mike Varney's in the mix, and Mike Varney is a guitar player too. He's a blues player.
Wow.
But yeah, Richie Costin's a really nice guy, really great person. I think I've done a couple of gigs where he was on the bill too. So,
Wow.
But he's very interesting to sit down and listen to and chat with. You know, he may not talk about music, he may talk about all kinds of other things like politics. And he's got some.
My kind of man. My kind of man.
He's got an unusual sense of humor too, so I like it. Different. Very interesting. Love his voice, man. He's got such a great voice. Johnny Bean was there when at this party where they're there with Richie, and
There he is there.
You can find the video on YouTube where Richie's singing, playing acoustic guitar to Jason.
Yeah. I'm familiar with it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, incredible. Good times. And you can move over to the next picture. I think it's the one with Mike Varney. Yeah, so Mike Varney, the second to the right. And so and the person dead center, that's Jason's dad, Gary. That's his father. And then since producer is next to Gary, on Gary's right side, and so he's a longtime friend. And then Dave Lopez and myself.
That's right. Yeah.
So Mike Varney.
I recognize Dave.
Yeah. If you could talk to Mike Varney, that guy's got stories that you'd have to go into like part 15 to hear all of Mike Varney's stories. Got amazing stories. He told this one with Michael Schenker. It was like unbelievable. Didn't know Michael Schenker would do stuff like that. It was incredible. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, Brian, that's tantalizing us.
Right.
That's the headline. I didn't know Michael Schenker would do stuff like that.
There's another sign here, Simon. I want you to read out. This is hilarious. Read this sign.
Say, oh, hang on. No stage diving, crowd surfing, moshing, or he will be removed. Where's that?
So this is at Slim's. This is where Jason's first show was held at Slim's in San Francisco.
It's a club, is it, Brian?
Yes,
sorry, apologies.
It's a club, and that's Joe Satriani and Alan. I forgot Alan's last name. Alan's an incredible bassist. Alan works during the day at a guitar store in San Francisco. And that's actually where I always take guitars to have it work on. But Alan's a great guy, monster bass player. And there's video of their performance on YouTube. You can find that. You can see how crazy, how wild and active Alan is on stage. It doesn't seem like that when you're standing there talking to him, but get him on stage.
Joe Satriani looks like a little fellow.
He does.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
only little guy.
He's shorter than I am. And Joe I actually met Joe years before when Flamel was asked to play at the NAMM show. The very first time we played at the NAMM show, we played there a couple of times, but the very first time I ran into Joe at the airport at the baggage claim. So I go and introduce myself, and I'm like, Joe, man, it's so glad to meet you. And said that I was a fan of his, and that we used his music. And my wife and I, when we got married, his music was part of our part of our wedding. So, and he was flattered. Cool. He was flattered by that, but at that time, I mentioned to him that I was in a flamenco metal band, and he was like, "Wow, I couldn't figure it out, but he could understand the flamenco rhythms and how they would work out in when you integrate it in metal music." And he was really interested to hear what that would be like. And then, several years later, here we are doing a gig with the guy, and so he got to hear what flamenco was like, and he was pleased, actually.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But it was awesome to do a gig with Joe Satriani on the bill. Well, and you had Richie Cox and Steve Lukather too. So. And I don't know if you guys know who Jude Gold is. Jude Gold is another friend of mine, and he played at that night in a Van Halen tribute group. So.
Food.
And this year, yeah. And so I like to incorporate a little break in our conversation. And this happened to be at a Peruvian restaurant where it's the first time I ever had grasshoppers for a snack. So,
is that what the
grasshoppers?
Brian, are they?
Grasshoppers.
Yeah. So those are grasshoppers. It wasn't that bad.
Oh my gosh! And is that wasabi?
No. It was like the sauce with avocado in it, but.
Wow!
But the grasshoppers, it wasn't too bad. I was surprised. It had a little bit of a hit to it. You get over that. It's like anything else, it's barbecue. and this is our band. I forgot which. Maybe this was 2010, I think. And we played on the outside stage at the NAMM show. And there's videos of us doing this gig here. And that's Angeline Saris on bass. She was the bassist. She was our bassist after Uriah Duffy. I think I told you the story before. He went off to play with White Snake. And so she took over the bass playing role. And she's fantastic on bass. Amazing. And Arlene is the flamenco castanet dancer there. And she's actually Ben Woods is the flamenco guitarist. That's his girlfriend.
Cool.
Great gig. I love playing at the NAMM show, but I just don't like to go to the NAMM show because I'm not a gear person. And there's a lot of walking that you do. If you want to get some exercise,
get fit.
Go to the NAMM show. Yeah, you do a lot of walking. This is us playing with Tony McAlpine's band, and at the time Neely Brosh was in the band. He's just an unbelievable musician. He's got to be one of the top female guitar players of all today that I can think of. But here, Full Metal did a gig with them. We opened up. But then the main act was actually Uli John Roth's band.
Brian, did you get these gigs via agencies or?
No, it was all just by word of mouth.
Word of mouth,
and knowing people, A lot of the gigs, that's how they work. So, like, even with our band, because we had like a unique style and sound, there was people that were curious to hear it. And so, a lot of times we got gigs just because of that, just because of what we were doing.
Right.
And then when they got, and then when the people got to see us play, then the word would get out, and so others that would just start leapfrogging to the next gig. So Tony McAlpine, I had met him years before too. So. He used to play with a friend, Mike Tirana, this really killer drummer. He's a metal drummer. I think he played for Acceptance. But I think he's in Europe actually.
Yeah, right. Making a living in Europe.
Right.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
The next photo. And so Don Doc and I had met years ago too, and here we are. We meet up again because we're my group for metal, and then Don was doing a little bit of a gig with Uli John Roth. So, you know, when Uli came into town, we would kind of follow him on his tour. And so that this particular gig, Don sang with Uli, and Doug Aldrich played guitar.
Oh wow!
I think that's the next photo, actually.
Okay, hold on.
Mr. Dokken looks like he's having a good time there.
Right. I think he tried to kiss my wife.
Gotta watch these rock stars, Brian.
Oh yeah, there's Doug.
And Doug, really nice guy. He had been playing with my bass player Uriah for a little while, maybe a year or two. So it was easy to get along with Doug. Doug already knew what I was doing on guitar. He already knew for metal music. He was familiar with it. So, and he supported our band as well. So
wow,
great to hang out with Doug. And I wish I got to jam with the guy, but that didn't happen. But at least we played at the same gig together. That was nice. met his wife at that evening, and I think maybe 8 months, because I remember they were just starting to start a family. So I think his first son came from around that time. Anyway,
cool. And a cool T-shirt.
Good times hanging out with Doug. I ran into him several times later at the NAMM show too. Great guy. Great guy.
Oh, this is cool.
And then you have to see or a piece or a piche. So any one of those three. Yeah. So the great thing about hanging out with Uli is that he's got a lot of famous friends, right? So we'd be hanging out in the in Uli's bus, and then we'd be talking, chatting, and then our mutual friend Roy Z would show up. I don't know if I explained to you about Roy Z. Did I?
That name's familiar to me. I don't know why.
Anyway, Roy Z is the producer of both Bruce Dickinson's solo albums, and he's also a member in Bruce Dickinson's band, and he was also a member and producer of Rob Halford's solo project as well.
Right.
And Roy also has his own band called Tribe of Gypsies. But the reason why I'm showing Carmine here is because we had been in the bus earlier and had this big conversation, this long conversation about his kids and how using your phone to speak to each other, even though you're in the same house, was to him ridiculous. He wished that they would get rid of their phones and just get into the living room and talk person to person instead of over your device. So that was a hilarious conversation that went on for like half an hour. Because
Brian, just so you know, my middle daughter Saskia, I communicate a lot with her via text and WhatsApp.
Right, while you're still in the same house, right?
Yeah, of course.
But during the time we were talking to Vinny, not Vinny, I was talking to Carmine about his family stuff. Also, hold on just a moment. You need to take a little bit of a break, just a moment.
No problem.
on a cliffhanger. We can pick up on. Say hi to Great Manzini. How you doing? Nice to see you.
I'll just mute his mic so we don't hear his personal conversation. Remind me to hit the unmute button when he comes back.
What are they talking about? They're so brilliant together. So who was talking about a version of Bohemian Rhapsody sung in Vulcan? Was it Klingon? That sounds funny. I'm gonna check that
correct,
out.
Mark. Carmen a piece.
That out. Is it Carmen
a piece?
A piece. It's you've got to do the hands as well if you're going to do the Italian bit. Because, yeah. You see, yes, I've no. It's one of those things, isn't it? How do you pronounce it? You know, Carmen, Apice, Apis. I think I've always called Apis. Really, just gone with the.
It's always been a piece here. Yeah, we didn't know,
yeah.
and we've got an excuse.
Yeah.
We didn't have.
What's that?
We hardly had any Italians around here, or exotic people to correct us.
Well, and I've said this to you before, isn't it? That it's one of those things that, before the internet,
He's back.
I'm back.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, good. We just muted you for a second just because we didn't want to hear your conversation if it was about what you guys were going to have for dinner.
Oh, no. It was nothing like that. There was a little bit of an accident. There's a little bit of an accident, so I had to go kind of take care of a little bit of it. But, right. So Warren DeMartini I met a long time ago when we opened up for them at a rat show back in 1905, I believe it was. The reason why we're here with Warren is because he was a guest on one of Woolie's performances. He guest guitared on that, and so we're hanging out and reminiscing, I guess you could call it.
Well, is it Warren DeMartini? One of the few people who you say is it D.E. Martini? Is that what it is? Is that how he spells his name, or is it like is D his middle initial?
Well, it's Italian, so it's
so it'd be DeMartini.
It's a one whole name, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounded like he pronounced his middle initial kind of thing, like James T. Kirk.
No. Oh no. It's not like that. No.
It's not that. No. It's DEMARCINI. Yeah.
Oh, Warren's such a great guy, and if you go to the next photo.
Hold on. I'm getting there. Hold on, Brian. Here we go.
And good time after the gig, outside the bar, and at this point I got to know that, which I didn't know previously, that Warren was a surfer Diego. I used to do that too when I was a kid. So, we had something in common there, and then he had my wife was there with Uli's girlfriend, Liz Van Dahl. She's a powerhouse singer. She's really cool. Incredible. That's Uli's girlfriend there. And way far in the back is Martin Monick, the bass player at the time for Uli's band. It was a good time. We're just hanging out, shooting the breeze. Hanging out with Warren.
Yeah. DeMartini.
Here is the person.
Oh, we've lost him. Brian, we've lost you. We've lost your sound. Yeah, you lost your sound. Yeah, we can't hear you. Okay. I think we understood that. Go out and come back in. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Andrew? Or is it me?
No, it's Brian.
Oh, that's right. I thought it was me. It was like, wait a minute, Andrew's not saying anything either. You never know. We're having a weather event where I'm living, whistling with rain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, it's fine. But, yeah, Brian's had an amazing life, hasn't he? Really, hang out with all these people, getting to know them. Half of which I don't recognise, which is terrible. But,
Oh, well, yeah. I know a couple of them, but I've never met them.
No, me neither. No, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the connection that we all have, obviously, is, through Daddy Bean and Van Halen.
Yeah, the Beanster.
Brian.
Oh no, we still can't hear you, Brian.
Can't hear you, brother.
He's not muted, is he? No, it doesn't. No, you've blown up, Brian. Yeah, with the sound.
Can't hear you, bro.
No, your sound is still gone, Brian. Can't hear you. No, can you hear us? The other way of doing it. Brian, can you hear us? No, he's gone out again. The wonders of modern technology. I'm checking this out. The Dover. You guys will love the whole production of Bohemian Rhapsody and Klingon. It sounds like a laugh. So amazing. So do you know who these people are in this picture, Andrew?
No.
I'm sorry to say I don't know who they are either. Embarrassing. We don't know who they are, but still.
Well, while we wait for him to jump in, so don't forget, guys, Simon and I and Brad will be on tomorrow talking about why we picked 5 songs each from this album, and just some general reflections, Simon, aren't we, on any of the videos that we've seen that are on YouTube? If none of the hosts have had an opportunity to see the concert, but just have a general reflection to try and keep the show a little bit topical, because this album came out a month ago. It'll be interesting to see how that works out, mate.
Which version have you got? You've just got the double. Is it the double? Is it a double LP, triple LP, double LP?
It's it's all the songs that are on Spotify and on the CD release. So
yeah.
So,
but I mean, I noticed when I was looking at it, you can get an album, a DVD, CD, you get a whole kind of box set of madness. Is that it?
Yeah.
Or is that just the album? That's just the album.
That's just the album. But all the songs, the song listings, from what I know, should all be the same. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what songs you've picked and what songs I've picked. I've tried to pick a cross section that I think's reflective of the album. That'll be interesting.
I like the best. But, yeah.
And I did a show earlier this afternoon with Alan Gerber. So if you guys haven't
I'm going to check that out later. Yeah.
It was fascinating listening to him talking about the tunings and the transcriptions and the dedication and hard work, Simon, that this guy has put into over 40 years, man. 40 years.
Of Van Halen study.
Of trying to get Eruption and the transcription right.
Right. Bloody hell. Sorry. 40 years getting.
Bloody hell.
Bloody hell is about right, isn't it? You're right. That is dedication, is it? That's really interesting about the sort of the lengths to go to get it right. Because I mean, he's gone the definitive version, which is what, on the first record? Yes? Is that that's what he's transcribed?
Yep.
Yeah. Because my guess is that Eddie Van Halen didn't play it the same way each time, necessarily.
Correct. Brian.
How's that?
Yeah. I can hear you now.
Have to restart.
Welcome back.
But
good news. We've still got the background noise.
But we got you.
Awesome. So I kind of think they were going to end up having to go to a part 3. I don't know.
Well,
It's
that's
okay.
fine. It's yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
We can, yeah.
Let's just go through this picture right here. So that's Roy Z over there. Next to me is Mark Bowles. He's a singer originally. I think is well known for singing with Yngwie Malmsteen back in the early days. And then that's Rob Roth. Rob Roth is from Florida. He's in the band called Driver at the time. And Roy Z was the guitar player, the lead guitar player in the band back in the 80s. And Roy is also a guitar prodigy as well. So back in the 80s, he was kind of known around the Hollywood scene as one of the guitar players along with Paul Gilbert.
No, right, yeah.
And that, but didn't get that much of a notoriety, but he definitely had the skills. But I enjoyed jamming with the guy since we're both Uli John Rock fans. And this is actually at a Uli gig, right?
Wow.
And
we were just saying when you were off right now, we didn't recognise any of those people.
Right. And so this is the Sky Academy. This one was held in Santa Monica. So this is the typical situation with these things where Uli would take the helm and teach us about the metaphysics of music and the color of sound. And there's one thing that's good about Uli is he's really dedicated to the purity of whatever the song is. So he used to do a lot of, when in his days growing up and playing gigs and stuff, he would play a lot of Blues Breakers music or stuff that Peter Green wrote, early Clapton, all of your idols is what he emulated and looked up to, as well as Jimi Hendrix. And of course, Jimi Hendrix is the kind of music that he really took to and incorporated in his own music. But he's particularly fond of and also taught classical guitar to a very high level. And of course, because of his love to play violin music lines on the guitar, he wasn't getting anywhere with the Stratocaster, so he developed the Sky guitar, which he has in front of him. And it's just one of the many models of Sky guitar.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a larger photo of the Sky guitar.
Cool.
Wow.
And this is like the only reason I put this picture up here is because this is the only photo that I have in Guitar Player magazine. So.
Oh, there we are, look, playing with it. Yeah, well done. Yeah.
And then I've never been in Guitar Player magazine, and I always read the thing, but never imagined that I'd ever have an actual picture in there. So I was kind of proud of that. And my friend,
yes.
my friend wrote the article for this particular. He's been a writer for Guitar Player for many years. So he did me a little favor there.
Stuck him in. Excellent. That's top stuff. Amazing. With the pink Les Paul.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah.
and here we are. And this is at Musicians Institute back in 2000. I want to say 2006. And this is the Sky Orchestra. So off to my left is like 12 other guitar players, and we're all playing, and we're playing playing a Vivaldi piece. And so everyone, it's like four of us were doing one violin section, and another was doing the cello, and another was doing another violin section. And there was also an actual cellist too with us on bass. And so that took a lot of rehearsing to try to get everybody up to speed. Vivaldi's Vivaldi's music is not easy.
Into like having guitar orchestra. Yeah.
So and some of us are playing, and some of us are playing with a little bit of game. I think this is like I want to say that at this gig, this is a 5-hour gig show, so, and there were all kinds of guitar players. Paul Gilbert got up on stage. Jeff Scott Soto sang. The Johnny K. Highland sang. I had guitar on that.
Wow.
Robbie Krieger. Man, who else was it? There was so many people. Michael Badio. Michelangelo. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he's the guy that has the 2-neck guitar and he plays ambidextrously and accurately on both hands.
Wow, that's amazing.
But, so anyway, this was at Musicians Institute, and that's me and Louis on his tour bus. So whenever he would come to the Bay Area, he would let us know. So we would meet him wherever it was he was gigging, and if I had enough time off, I would kind of follow him on his gigs. And I just have to, and I would just have to show up. That's all. Show up and hang out with him in the bus and chat about family life and stuff like that. And I sat with him before while he was working some business on his laptop, and it was just amazing. You should see. First time I ever saw anyone with a Facebook page, where how you get your little notices, right? Or how many posts are there, or how many emails. This was it's 700 posts and 939 mail in your. I never saw numbers. I never saw numbers like that. And he was confessing to me. He said, "Oh yeah, I really need to get somebody to manage this stuff." He goes, "You want to do it?" I said, "No."
Good try, yeah. No,
I'm not the administrator.
Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
Did I ever tell you the history about how we met?
Just Brian, sorry, just the guitar. The round things on the top horn, are they just decorations? Are they?
No. See, no. So you got delay effects, reverb effects. They're all on board.
Oh, really?
On the guitar. Yeah, and
right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and
wow.
I wouldn't be able to tell you in detail what each knob on the top horn does, because this was the latest model that he had developed. Called the Excalibur. This guitar sells for $36,500.
Oh,
wow! And the reason why is because these guitars are all art pieces, and they're all individually done by one person. Right. Boris, I can't pronounce his last name, builds these guitars by hand. Right, all the parts on it are gold plated. They have a special pickup in there, 3 pickups. And with this guitar, you can switch from a Les Paul sound straight to a Telecaster sound, straight to a Strat sound, vintage Strat sound.
Wow.
You have full control over the tone on this guitar. It's powered by a pickup that's, I don't know what the power level is on that pickup, but it has to be strong enough to be able to draw magnetism from the strings, because it's under the fretboard, right? So if you look at the fretboard, it goes past over the neck pickup and over the middle pickup.
Yep. You can see it there.
Yes, and there's a neck pickup under the neck.
Yeah. Over there.
Yeah. Blimey.
Yeah. Unusual, isn't it? Haven't seen anything like it.
Right. And so his dream was to be able to play violin pieces on an electric guitar. And this is what it took in order to get there. And and the pickups there are called Mighty Wing pickups. So every Sky guitar has a Mighty Wing pickup on it. And if you back up a little, you see that the fretboard top is lighted. So the entire neck has light,
it's got to
has diode light markers spanning the entire neck. So back in the early days when we'd be at gigs, his eyesight was kind of going, and so like I remember one time being in the van, and he was like, "I can't see the neck. I can't see, especially when it's dark." And so I sat there with his sky guitar and a Sharpie marking off all the spots where the markers were supposed to go on the top part of the neck, just so they'd be able to see it.
Yeah. Wow. And a scalloped neck as well.
Yeah, from the 5th fret down.
From the
So
5th.
you can see.
Yeah.
So there's the
Wow.
lights there on the top there, where the fret
See,
markers are.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Brian, just so it's got delay and reverb on it as well, has it?
Yeah, and I think there's more effects in there, but I couldn't really tell you for sure. But and the bottom part where those knobs are, he can dial in. It's got tone controls separate for treble, mid range, and bass.
The switches, oh, blimey.
And he's got full control because he can switch from single. He's got details where you can go combine single coil and humbucking at the same time. There's a separate video that you'll see on YouTube if you go and look for it, where he does a rig rundown, and he talks all about this guitar and the special power source that powers the guitar.
I just having a look at it on the Sky Guitars website. It says all elites have a minimum of 9 or 10 control knobs.
Right.
That's either good or crazy, isn't it?
And the jewel in the back is not only lit, but it cycles through different colors too.
Yeah, it's got a chorus, flanger, touch wah,
right,
and another thing, a 10-minute high fidelity looper. Blimey.
Okay, there you go.
That's optional.
And also it's an auto-tune guitar too, so you can just set to whatever open tuning you want to have the guitar set to.
What, and it will retune with it?
Yeah,
can you retune it? Wow.
Yeah, automatically.
You mean the things that were so scorned on the Gibson, the Les Paul?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely watch that rig rundown because you'll get the full.
I will. Yeah. Looks astonishing, and all that. That's. You don't need a pedal board after that, do you? Just got it. Yeah.
I think we're at a point where I think I'll have to kind of take a pause.
That's fine.
And then move to a part 3, I think.
Okay.
Because
Brian,
it's been incredible.
We didn't go down the Judas Priest road. We didn't go down the AC/DC road.
Yes, Derek. The antidote to Eddie's Frankie. Absolutely, yes.
So
absolutely. That's very good. That's very clever. The antidote to the simplicity of Eddie's Frankie to the complexity of early Roth's Sky guitar.
John Roth's Sky guitar. Yes, to one pickup, one volume knob. That's it. That's all you need. Lovely.
And I didn't even get into my approach of actually playing the instrument too. So.
Well, the good thing about these shows...
Bad news, we'll have to do another one.
The bad news is you have to come back. So,
come back.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Do you want to do a shout-out, Simon, to everybody before we go?
Yeah. So,
thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. It's been absolutely
thanks a lot
amazing.
for having me.
Really interesting. Yeah. Well,
come back.
We could tell you had a story, and you have a story, all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Fantastic. Well, it's fantastic, and it's fantastic to hear them. And, so thanks to Mark Tanner, Robot Master Switch, the Dogpa, Derek Clacton, of course, the great Vanzini. He's been in as well. Fantastic. Nice to see you, great Vanzini. But all's good in your world.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, for showing up. And, I think it's difficult for a lot of people at this hour, right?
Weird hours, yeah.
On the East Coast, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. 3 in the morning.
We had Texas Jackdaw as well. Thanks, Texas, for dropping by. It's very cool. We had D-Tube and Deja Voodoo as well. The top, who else? I think that's probably... And Johnny Bean and Miles Taylor.
Sonia.
Dropped by as well. Sonia. And as ever, shout out to Warren. Hope you're all right, Warren. Friend Warren is having a tough time right now.
Oh,
so I think that's probably got most people.
Yeah,
so
hope he gets better.
Yeah. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow morning for Fleetwood Mac.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks,
all right, Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
So that's really interesting. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Take care, all. Bye.
Bye.